Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
You know, getting by.
Well, it's not very well.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be better.
Okay. Well, I'm having a good day.
Well, good. It is a gorgeous day out.
It is.
It is.
I think we need to sit in the sun for a while.
We should. I mean, we should do the podcast outside.
Can we?
Might not be the best audio, but details.
Later.
Okay. So I hear you have another good story for us.
I do.
Okay.
Have you
Please tell me it's not involving any more cats. I don't know that I can deal with that again. I don't know if you want to deal with that again.
This is about an employee interview. We'll start there.
Okay.
Have you
Now I'm
participated?
intrigued.
Have you participated in many employee interviews?
I have.
Do you like it?
No.
Okay. All right. Well,
but I think we've covered it. Generally, don't like people, so
or animals.
Or animals.
It's a whole different podcast. Why are you doing this? Anyway, sorry. Okay, so I picture.
Let's not do my psych evaluation.
Okay, all right. So picture I'm doing an interview for a nurse at a community. Okay, big job,
yes.
A lot of responsibility.
Right.
So one of the questions I like to ask is, tell me a time you had to think outside the box. Right?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
right.
It's not like that out of the crazy question, but I like to see how far they're willing to, be creative. And she said, well, I had this resident that was, not doing very well, and she passed away, and we still had all of her medications on hand. They hadn't done the process of disposing the medications. And she said, well, and I had this other resident who had a cat that was dying. And
why are we doing cats again? I thought we were
because, and I said, so what happened? And she said, well, the resident wanted me to put the cat down, and the only option I had was the other resident's narcotics. So I used the resident's narcotics to say goodbye to the cat. And I'm like, so you stole narcotics, first of all, and then you killed a cat. Is that what I'm hearing? That's your out-of-the-box idea? She's like, well, yeah. I mean, we took care of it. We didn't have to pay for, the vet. And I said, great. Any questions for us?
Assuming she didn't.
No, interview over. Interview over. But I was like, I appreciated her honesty. I really did. And she was thinking outside the box, but not within the rules. So anyway.
I love how she's sitting there and talking about cost savings and but not thinking about the cost of meds.
And she wasn't at the other building, different state. So I was going to wonder if she was, at my other cat building, but no, not the same situation.
Okay, so now that we've talked about way too many cats, right. That's an untimely and unfortunate end. Let's talk about we've talked about visiting the communities. We've talked about tours of the communities. But one of the things in the guidebook that you put together was just kind of a cheat list or cheat sheet of things that families need to be thinking about. So walk me through that.
So sometimes when family members have to make this decision, I mean, ideally, you've got 6 months to a year. I had 18 months with my mom. Plenty of time to think about it, go through all the pros and cons. And sometimes, your mom,
have 3 days.
You have a day. You have 3 days. You have no time at all. Like mom fell, broke her hip, went to rehab, being discharged always on a Friday night. And, the doctor's very clear she cannot go home. It's like, what are you going to do? You don't have time maybe necessarily to read the whole guidebook. That's fine. Just go to the cheat sheet. It's 2 pages and go to the checklist. I'm not here to judge on people's time and their priorities. If you read the whole thing, I mean, of course, you're going to be more educated than most people coming into the buildings to do their research. But honestly, you just sometimes need an emergency situation. I've used it with some other family members and friends that were in crisis. And that's kind of how this whole thing came up. Is like, I'm usually like 1-800-CALL-MANDY when, somebody elderly is in crisis. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, okay, here we go.
That is not a working phone number, just FYI.
No. Oh, sorry. I don't know. Call it. I don't know what's going to happen. You won't get me. So that's kind of, it was recurring questions that kept coming up from family members. And when the guidebook was in when I was writing it, I had kind of a draft, and I sent it off to my brother who was looking for his in-laws, and he and the family they were definitely not on the same page. It was a crisis situation. They read through it as a family, and they were able to make an informed decision. And they were like, "This is just so helpful." I'm like, "Oh, well, good, great. I'm glad it was able to work for you."
That was the intention.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was an hour conversation, and then they read the guidebook, and they were good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what I think you mentioned, a little bit there briefly about like when there is a crisis and you are having to make that
choice,
instant decision, what do you need to be focused on? I'm assuming that's the basics, but what are the basics that need to be emphasized in that type of situation versus
like crisis management?
Yes, yeah. I have a month or I have a year to make this decision. We're going to go through a very different process because of that.
So the first thing you're going to want to know very quickly, whether the resident is at home, at the hospital, skilled nursing, whatever the situation is, what does the state require? And we're talking assisted living and memory support. Independent living, that's a whole different situation. But what do they need medically in order for them to move in? And oftentimes it's doctor's orders, and these are all the medications that the residents are in. These are the prescriptions. Communities cannot just like take your bottles of pills. Here's my Walmart, bag of pills. And I've had that happen to me many times. Here you go. Here's mom's meds. Deal with it. We cannot legally give out medications that way. We have to have an order for each one of those pills. And sometimes that will trip up families. And that goes for any supplements too. So whether you're taking fish oil or, magnesium or whatever the deal is, we have to have orders for those as well. So the community can't just willy-nilly, give out what you may be dealing with at home. Oftentimes the residents are required to be assessed. Now, can a community assess the same day? I don't know. It depends on how busy the nurses are or whoever is required to do that. I'm not saying communities can't jump through hoops to get someone to move in within a day or two, but everyone has got to be working on the same time. It's very difficult. I do not recommend moving a resident in on the weekend. So if that means you as a family need to take care of mom or dad at home for a couple of days so that you can take a minute to breathe, figure out what you're going to do, I would suggest it. I didn't move my mom into a community over the weekend. It's just better to do it in my opinion, during the weekdays.
What about creating like a scorecard as part of that to, what with values or standards for things that are important to you? And how would a family even go about doing that if they wanted to compare communities in that manner?
I mean, everyone has different values in terms of what is important to them, and they may be different than what the resident is looking for, right? So when you look at the checklist, you can put whatever value you want. You want to give one 10 points and one 5 points, doesn't matter to me. But if food is like a driving factor for the resident, then give it more points if the food's good or bad. You may not have time to decide if the food's good or bad. I don't know. It depends on your own situation. If price is the number one issue, well, then you need to really consider that. Or is it, the size of the apartment or transportation, because I don't have time. I won't have time personally to take my mom to the doctor's appointments. It's completely subjective to what's important to you as a family and to the resident ultimately.
So I'm relating this to like buying a house. Sometimes you go look at a whole bunch of houses and then you all of a sudden walk into one and you're like,
this is it. Yeah.
This is it. This is home. Do you think that something like that happens as it relates to senior living communities? Or do you think that it's more about comparing all of those different elements relative to the standards of care, the cost,
I think it could be all of those things. I rarely do we see residents only tour one place and then put a deposit down and move in. Usually they're shopping maybe 3 to 5 communities if you have time. Again, if communities are in crisis or maybe it's a one tour because maybe they have friends that live here or they've had other experiences or they know reviews or things like that. It's different for every single person, but I think you're going to know pretty quickly whether it's a good fit for you as a family or for the residents themselves.
So what are the perfect communities out there?
I haven't found one. Have you?
Trick question.
I mean, think we did a pretty good job, but we are not perfect. It's impossible. I think as I'm living this personally, there are things that you have to be able to, I guess, pick your battles with. And the best run communities with the most amazing staff, there will be failures, whether it's an actual service failure or it's a perception of a service failure, right? So I might love dinner tonight, and my table mate may think it's the worst meal they've ever ate, right? So it's a situation of what is your perception of that. So that's
you may love the entertainment.
Yeah, and I might think it's like, what is this, right? It's just like you would in your own life, right? I like the movie, someone else doesn't like the movie, but I think that if you get very clear with the resident and the family on what are our non-negotiables, okay, and they need to be reasonable, and if those are things that the community you think can meet, then I think you're in a good place. I would say it's so important that when you go into a community that you're going in with good intent, right? This is team mom or team dad or team grandma, whatever. You cannot be at war with the community, right? If I walked I'm in a building right now, I can find 10 things in this room that I think are wrong, right? Or I can come in and show some grace and say, okay, yeah, we need to work on this issue, or, let's table this for another time. So I have to walk in with assuming good intent, thinking the best about the community, and
setting them up for success.
Yeah, so because it's so easy to go in and with my own guilt or emotions for the day, and then take that out on the staff who are already working so hard. So having those expectations and having that mindset is very important for success.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think any family would benefit from some of this stuff. And
yeah.
Hopefully everyone takes advantage of it.
So. Yes. We're not here to judge. Just skip to the end if you need to.
Sounds good. We'll appreciate everybody joining us, and we will hopefully be back again soon.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.